What's going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 14. I am your host, Marcus, and in this episode, we are talking about what you are missing out on. Now, the big thing why I wanted to bring this topic up was to kind of touch on, self-development and kind of my story of how I got into self-development in hopes to help you and why I feel it is something that you really need to focus on and include in your life. Not to only optimize your life, because you hear a lot of negative different things about self-development. And I want to kind of knock that stuff down because a lot of times when you talk about self-development, you're talking about improving yourself the best way you can. And a lot of times people tend to stray from that because it sounds like a lot of work. And if you are the kind of person that is struggling to get out of bed every day, you may be wondering, well, what is the purpose of life? And when you're in that position in life, you realize that you have a scarcity mindset, that you feel like your options are really limited and that you are put in the position that you are and that things just will not get better. And coming from that perspective, it's hard. It takes a lot just to get out of bed. It takes a lot to just do your normal everyday things. And a lot of times, yes, it does take hope. It does take a mindset. You have to realize that your mindset is a very powerful tool and that your mindset is put you in that bed and not allowing you to get up and moving. And so a lot of times what it will take is for you to just go through the motions sometimes. And I know getting through the day is a hard thing, but it is something you have to do. You have to get up. And even though that doesn't sound very motivating, I'm telling you, there's opportunity there. And right now, what you're not seeing is you're seeing a limited landscape. And this is what is hard about the society we live in today, because if you don't have the big house, the car, and all these other things, essentially that put you in debt, take away your freedom, you are not successful, right? You are not happy. It comes down to realizing that happiness is a state of mind, that your mind controls all of those things. But you have a society that's telling you that, okay, that's not what you need. You need to have X, Y, and Z to live a fulfilled life. And a lot of people, they want a simpler life. And that makes sense because of the fact that you don't need a lot. And the things that you do obtain, you can leverage. But it's understanding the perspectives and how you leverage those things. And this is going back to self-development. It's been a big thing for myself because of the fact that I've done work on myself. I've talked about being a heavier kid when I was younger, getting into weightlifting and running a lot when I was in high school. And so I lost a lot of weight and I kind of battled weight on and off. I really just neglected myself is what I did. I couldn't establish a routine. I couldn't establish all these things that self-help talks about. But, we think about self-help as, well, because I've tried it for a couple weeks, it's just not working. But simple systems, right? They work. Simple systems will get you to where you want to go. And self-help is that. It's a simple system that allows you to find a routine, to develop environments, to help you become successful. But you have to understand that it's something that you have to maintain. Like anything, you have to maintain it. It's easy to just go home, turn on the TV and just watch TV. It's been a long day. Your energy is depleted. I understand that. But sometimes you just need to grind through the energy levels. I've done it through many years. I know we're so willing to go on a crash diet, right? Stick it out for 60 days to lose the weight, and then we fall back into routine. Same kind of aspect we take on anything else in life. Right? I talk about mindset. A lot of people don't want to believe it because they don't see it. If you could see, I've had some videos on here in my older videos of the changes that I've gone through. I've changed a lot. I dedicate a lot of that to self-help because it has given me perspective on things. And I talk about how life can give you perspective and will give you perspective if you don't want to learn specific lessons in life. And this is what is hard, because doing self-help, right? I never picked up a self-help book until I was in my 30s. I always just worked on myself. Well, I guess you consider maybe weight training, fitness, and stuff like that. That could be considered self-help in the self-help space. And what I've done a lot of different self-help. I talked about one time wanting to be Mr. Olympia at one point in my life, but I felt in my mind I couldn't do that because both of my quad muscles were shredded up, right, in the injury that I had when I was younger. So I didn't have essentially the appeal, right, because my muscles were all essentially scarred up. So I didn't have the definition of my legs that I wanted to have if I was going to compete. So that held me back. And that's just a good example of the things in life that will hold you back, as opposed to just going through with it and just giving it a try. Because a lot of times it is always a mental block. And it is something that I've talked about. I made an Instagram post on this in particular about stop essentially using your logical side of your brain to become more creative, because a lot of times our logical side of our brain will override everything. And depending if you're male or female, right, I think women tend to be more logical about things than men are typically. But understanding this, if you can try to not listen to that logical side and allow that more creative side to come out, you realize, and by doing meditation, I've been kind of hammered on meditation a lot over the past week, because of the fact people are curious about it and what it can do. Because meditation can get you in that creative state, and it shuts down the logical side of your brain. Because if you really think about it, the logical side of your brain, it is going to protect you, right? Whether that's your reputation, whether that's to provide essentially a roof over your head, right? Food in your mouth, all the basic essentials. It's going to do that. And by doing that, it will make you just comfortable enough. You may hate life, but you'll be comfortable enough to where you're secure. Your body, your brain, you feel secure, right? But to really get the things that you want in life, it's not going to come easy. It always requires a sacrifice. It always requires effort on your behalf to get there. And even, again, that sounds stressful, it is not. And it's not just words I'm trying to say here. What I'm saying is you get to a point to where everything becomes natural and normal for you to be able to do that. Now, being said, when I came into self-help, I was actually introduced through somebody that I was actually trying to learn programming, and it was more of a soft skills kind of thing. And it kind of opened up to my brain, my mind, or perspective, because I always was heavy into fitness and everything, on and off, right? Because again, I fluctuated with weights due to injuries and everything else, and every other excuse I could throw out there. But nonetheless, I've done a lot of fitness stuff. I've done a lot of studying and stuff throughout my schooling. But being said, I didn't really get into self-help. So I tried to read a book on programming, and that kind of got me more into the self-help space. And then I heard that one line about, the average American only reads one book a year. And at the time, it's about, on average, what I was reading was about a book, maybe two a year. But ultimately, the average CEO reads 60 books a year. And I was like, what could 60 books a year really do for me? Like, what could it do for me? Like, if it was just books on knowledge and learning and stuff like that. And I talk about, there's a lot of different people out there who may feel like it's important to actually read, not just do audiobooks and stuff, because that also helps with a lot of different other ways that your brain learns. But being said, knowledge is power, and knowledge, the quicker you can obtain knowledge is even better. And that's why a lot of video and audio and audiobooks are becoming so popular, because of the fact that you can listen through an audiobook really fast and obtain the knowledge. Because ultimately what's about is having the knowledge. But not only that, that is something I really wanted to talk about today is actually execution of the knowledge. Because you can fall into this this mindset, essentially, which a lot of people that come into self-help really do. And I see it not just in self-help, but when I talk about like the plant-based diet, like people attempt it and they're like, oh, this is garbage, this is just not going to work. How are you really applying it? Are you applying it the correct way, right? And that's ultimately where coaches and everything like that come into play, and mentors and stuff, which I've had. But the thing is to understand here is the fact that, you need to focus on execution, right? You can obtain all this knowledge in the world and that makes you feel great, right? You get that dopamine hit. Like, I know that's how it works. But how are you actually executing on it, right? You have some kind of accountability system that helps you execute on it, that helps you allow you to make the change. Are you pushing yourself every day in that comfort zone to make a change? That's not saying this is you're going to perfect this, right? Because I have not perfect this. I have my essential lulls, right, throughout time. There are times when I find it to be a struggle, and then I have to essentially kick myself in the butt to be able to get back in correcting what I need to be doing, executing more. Because sometimes, again, I fall off, right? It's anybody, right? Again, we're trying to win the war in not every single battle. That's what you have to understand. When I was coming into self-help and learning about habits and understanding the different concepts and tools I could use, right? Breathing techniques, meditation, perspective is huge, right? People, you hear a lot of different YouTubers and stuff talk about perspective, and you're like, well, perspective is great, right? But the thing is about perspective, and why it is so big is if you come into someone's opinion or somebody's perspective thinking your perspective is correct and that they're wrong, which I see a lot of people tend to do. I don't know if it's an automatic thing or if people just, don't want to accept someone else's opinion because of beliefs that were essentially ingrained in you through your environment, friends, family, the system, whatever the case is, as opposed to trying to take that and digest it and make sure that that thought, that idea is your own, with still trying to look at another perspective and being able to be neutral about that perspective and trying to understand why it is so big. And in doing this, in coming into self-help, it is giving me perspective. It puts things into a new framework that allows me to understand the world better. And that's ultimately what it's about. How can you understand your world better? Because the not knowing, right, not having knowledge of how the world works, how you work, how other people work, it really stops you from progressing in your life to where you want to go. Because a lot of times you can be banging your head against the wall and understand why are things not working. And I'll give you a good example of this because I remember coming out of the military, it took forever for me to find a job. I'm like, when I come out, it's going to be so easy to find a job, right? I've done technical school. I've been a project manager. I've been all these other different things. I have like a laundry list of experience. And then when I went to went for my first job interview outside the military, they were like, that's great, but it's not outside experience. Like, what does that even mean? It's experience that surpasses anybody here, any manager here. And you're telling me it doesn't matter? Like, that was eye-opening in itself. And feeding in the system about that you have to level up in a specific environment for people to see that. And that's, again, when I changed over into programming, I saw the same thing, right? Like, I knew certain skills transitioned over. People don't want to see that. People want to see, well, really, how long have you been in this space? It doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that I have perspective, I have skills that transition over. I have soft skills that transition over. And when you look, and when you're talking about perspective, right? Perspective can put things into a new field, a new way of seeing the world that opens up your eyes to possibilities. And when you're sitting in bed thinking that everything is ending, that there is no way out, that's because of the fact that you think that your options are limited. You just don't have the perspective to see what else is out there, other things out there that could possibly, motivate you to want to go make change in your life. But understanding this isn't easy, right? I can sit here and tell you, but if you don't take the action, if you're not executing on the action, not only going out and perhaps experiencing something, but going out and learning about something new, reading a book, doing a webinar, doing whatever the case is, right? Trying to find knowledge, right? Yeah, there's going to be some bad knowledge out there. It's not all going to be 100%. And this is where it comes to the fact that, a lot of people will say, well, it's just mumbo jumbo and it's all trash, right? Self-help and everything like that. Because yes, there are bad apples in the bunch. It doesn't matter where you look. Am I being truthful here? Sometimes there's always bad apples in the bunch, right? But there's those individuals, those resources that are legitimate. And I've experienced that, right? And I used to fall in that same camp that, self-help is just a bunch of jazz and none of it makes sense. It's just all BS essentially, right? But when in fact, it is not. It's you applying the same basic, simple system to your life to allow yourself to make change. That requires time. It requires effort on your behalf to make the changes, not only to learn about these concepts, these ideas, and these tools, but being consistent in executing on it, right? You're not going to be a bodybuilder, not that you want to be a bodybuilder. Not everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, but you're not going to do that if you don't put in the reps. You're not going to be a great leader if you don't put in the reps. You're not going to be a great runner if you don't jog the miles. You're not going to be a great teacher if you don't put in the time in the studying, right? We like to nitpick on different things where the basic concepts that I talk about, right, can be applied to anything that you do in life. But we like to apply them, well, the system says that schooling is okay, so that's okay. But to apply the same concepts and principles to help, that's just ridiculous and absurd. Why? It's the same thing. It takes the same amount of effort. Meditation doesn't work for me. It can if you put in the time. Again, it took a long time for me, but I was dedicated to doing it. It's that thing where you have to get 10,000 hours to become a master. You're not trying to master it, but you're trying to make it your new normal. So you have to put in the time. Eventually, the more time you put into it, the better you are. You are trying to rewire your brain. Your brain doesn't like change naturally. Especially when you get older, it tries to solidify the wiring. This is why if you've been in a relationship for a long time and you guys break up, divorce, whatever the case is, it's hard because your brain doesn't like change, right? You have a big gap there because of the fact that now you have to establish your own routine, which can be hard for some people and it's painful. But a lot of times it is worth it. If you find that you're sitting there, you're having a really rough time, and you find that you are complaining about your situation, and yet you continue to do it. Insanity, right? Self-help has gotten me out of that mindset and everything else. And again, it started with a book and perspective, in realizing it is just a habit, but a habit can be changed. It's not easy, it's painful, but it can be changed. And then I learned about other different aspects, right? I learned about plant-based. I was fearful of change. I was led to believe that, it's something that is wrong for whatever reason. I really don't know why it's wrong, because it's different. It's different. When it's different, it's hard for us to accept that because we've been taught one way and not the other way. And that's why it's important to have open ideas and be open about things and never judge things and think, oh, that's never going to work. right? People thought the world was flat at one point. People thought a bunch of different things. People thought EVs would never take off. I mean, electric vehicles, right? They were created over 100 years ago, believe it or not. There's a bunch of different thoughts and ideas and stuff out there that you can't just throw away and just assume it's not going to work for you. And so if you don't put in the work, if you don't try to invest in yourself, because that is something I've talked about, is investing in yourself, right? A lot of people are afraid to pay money to invest in themselves. They're quick to throw money at college or other things like that for whatever reason, because we are essentially grown up to believe that's what you're supposed to do. Not all colleges are great. I've taken classes that are absolutely horrible. They make no help, right? But I had to take it. For what reason? I don't know, because I can't apply it to real life. I've taken courses that have been garbage. I've taken some really good courses and I've taken some really bad courses. You have to weed through the goods and the bads. But it's being persistent with it. It's going out and trying to seek the knowledge and finding the good stuff, applying it. If it doesn't work, throw it away, try something new. You have to realize that you are not fixed in any way, shape, or form. We are made of energy. We ourselves are not fixed. We are constantly changing. We are balls of energy, right? You have to understand that. We are balls of energy. You can change your life. Your life doesn't have to exist the way it does. And I get a lot of comments about people saying, your situation is different. Your situation, it's not that simple. And then what happens is a lot of times you hear excuses on why their situation could be different. You're buying into the victim mentality of where that excuse is what's holding you back. And your excuse is just a mental impediment, is all it is. But do you buy into that? See, I also come from, this is something I haven't really talked about. When I was younger, right, I was put in special education. I was put in all these different things. I think it was more because of my attention span, right? You could have said I had ADD back then, right? I think I was forced into that only because I was different. I thought different. It's taken years to break out of that, right? And I try to help people accelerate that and understand that it is possible. Stop buying into the fact that what everybody tells you is going to be your opinion about yourself and how you define yourself. Self-help helps you break out of that. Self-help helps you build the confidence. You got to build you up. You don't need any outside material things or relationships or anything else that's going to complete you. To complete yourself, you have to go inside and work on yourself internally, whether that's through meditation, breathing techniques, learning, taking courses, some that are garbage, some that are good, some that are, really teach you, going to school if that's what you want to do, right? Go to college. Maybe you want a more structured, more expensive way to learn. Investing in yourself. There's a reason why there's a price tag there. This is something I've talked about how the brain works, right? You have to put risk on the table. Risk being money. If you're afraid to put risk on the table, right, you're not more apt to pay more attention. You're more easily to throw it in the trash. Like, I try to provide as much value as possible coming on here, but a lot of times you'll absorb it, it'll feel good, and then you go back to your same old routine. And then you wonder why it just is not going to work. It'll work if you stick to it. It all comes down to discipline and finding that even on those hard days, you still get up and you still do it. Because in the end, you'll still make progress. A lot of times you just have to go through the action to be able to make the progress, because it's a compounded effect. No matter what you do in life, to get better at anything, this is something I even have to tell, my 5-year-old, to get better at anything, you have to have a compound effect. It has to be compounded over time. It's not instantaneous. We're too absorbed in this instant results. I want instant results. Fix me now, fix me now. But we tend to forget that it's been years of damage that just put us where we are. It'll take time to get us out of where we are. By focusing every day on what we can change, what we can do to make that compound effect. We also have to understand too that you want to be macro on your outlook and your destination. You want to be able to see far with where you want to go. You want to have big dreams. You want to have that thought, that idea that I'm not worried about what's going on in my day-to-day life. I'm worried in the fact that I know what I have to get done in the day. But I'm not worried about the results, because I'm more worried about the big picture results. That's where you want to be. Big picture results is where I want to aim towards. Small everyday actions is what I need to focus on. I shouldn't expect results in a matter of time. You just put your head down and keep working. One day you'll actually wake up and realize how much compounded effort you've been putting towards it, and then realizing, man, things are actually really good from where I was, and they've really improved. And you can step off of the routine and realize, man, I was very far ahead of where I used to be. And this is what self-help has helped me. I read that book, and then it caused me to read other books about habits and thoughts and ideas. And a lot of the thoughts and ideas, right? I started reading book after book after book after book. And I think that first year, I must have read close to like 65, almost 70 books. And I was just trying to obtain knowledge. I became thirsty with the knowledge. But then at that point, it was more than that. I started falling into that realm where it was more just obtaining the knowledge and actually taking the action. And then it took us perspective change and my father passing for me to be like, I need to start taking some action here. That urgency effect, like life is short. I got to put this stuff into action. I got to start changing habits in my life, because the habits before aren't suiting me. And now I might have to take pills for the rest of my life and be in pain, have side effects for who knows what, right? Because I'm not willing to put forth the effort. It's easier to just sit and not do anything and relax. I understand it. I get it. Sometimes you got to push through that. Eventually it will get better. But if you're not trying to improve during those hard times where you're tired and exhausted, it's not going to get better. And I know through the longest time, like I was overweight, and I was trying to get myself back in shape. And to be able to do that, I had to, after a long day's work of pulling cable and lifting manhole lids and all kinds of, heavy physical work, doing that all day, and then be like, okay, I'm exhausted. All I want to do is just take a shower and go to bed. At that point, I've pushed myself to still go to the gym. I came home, I just threw my clothes on and I went out and I started doing it. Sometimes it was really hard because some days were really long. But you have to have that mentality. Self-help gave me the thoughts, the ideas, and then I was just putting into action. And you realize that the framework is there to adapt to your life. The tools are there to help stress and make you focus on the decisions that you're making in the now, because it's how you start redirecting and recreating a better life for yourself. There isn't hope. Only takes you so far. Motivation only takes you so far. You have to find it in yourself what you want and then go after it. by taking action, learning what are my opportunities here. A lot of times when you look for perspective and you go through experiences, you learn about new opportunities. Then it's kind of like, man, I've been kind of flying with blinders on this whole time because these opportunities were right underneath my nose. But it's not only seeing those opportunities, it's going in and trying to take advantage of those opportunities the best that you can. So, what are you missing out on? You're missing out on a lot. I'm not saying you have to go be an entrepreneur. I'm not saying you have to go be a bodybuilder. I'm not saying you have to go do X, Y, and Z. What I'm saying is make change in your life. If you find that you are complaining about any part of your life, it can be changed. There's opportunity there. It's finding the perspective. Sometimes trying to understand that, you have to realize that you have to give yourself time, but you do have to start something. Sometimes you may feel like you're really stuck in a hard space. So you may need to be building something to get yourself out, right? Build that wedge or whatever it's going to take to pry you out of where you're at. But if you don't build that shovel or whatever it is to pry you out of there, you're never going to get out of there and you're going to be stuck. And at that point, wishing and hoping isn't going to get you out of there. You need to be building, creating the mindset that's telling me, you know what, I got this. No matter what, I got this. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's go. Destination in sight and just knocking it out day after day, compound effort after effort. I don't care how long it's going to take. I don't care what direction it's going to take me. I'm along for the ride, but I'm going to get to this destination. So let's make it happen.